Welcome, everyone. We are excited to see anybody here that got to sleep in this morning a little bit. Hopefully you all did. We had one bill, so we said there's no sense of us showing up at 8 o'clock, so we'll start at 9. And of course, if this goes along, you know, it's all Representative Harrelson's fault, not ours. So anyway, welcome. Glad to have you here. The bill we're looking at today will be House Bill 104, Hunting of Predatory Animals Amendments. And with that, we'll go ahead and welcome Mr. Harrelson up, Representative Harrelson, and let us give us all the information you need to give us on this bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee. Thank you for being willing to come out this morning, and we can be done right now and just vote if you want, or I can talk about it. So let me give you kind of a little bit of a background on 104. House Bill 104 was born out of a conversation I had with a constituent who had a question for me, and he said, "Did you know it's legal to hunt at night on public land for predators?" I said, I think I did. And he says, but they can't use lights or any technology whatsoever to do it. And I said, yeah, I've always done it on private land with written permission, and we can use all that technology and the equipment. He goes, well, he says, we had an issue. It was a moonlit, snowy night, and we had a predator hunter out there and a Charolais cow. And they didn't see the white cow in the white night, and that guy bought a cow that night. And luckily he was honest and talked to the landowner and made everything right. But this guy said, he goes, I don't have a problem with them shooting coyotes, but you better give them some ability to use that technology. And so that was kind of where House Bill 104 was born. This is the opportunity on public lands for us to use the modern technology. The technology is thermal, infrared, night vision, and also just lighting devices for the taking of predators on public land. And so before you today is that bill, and it just basically opens up the opportunity for not legalizing predator hunting at night, but just giving more opportunity for it to be, in my opinion, safer. There was a standing committee amendment on the House side that was brought by Game and Fish that said, hey, you know what, can you just open the sideboards a little bit so we can really propagate the proper rules, seasons, all of that nature, which we did pass. And so that's kind of where it came out of our body and came to your body. So to give you guys a little bit of information, you guys probably got a handout. There's currently 34 states that have legalized that. Perfect. Thank you, Senator. 34 states that have legalized that. And one of the things that we're finding is the feral hog problems we're seeing down south. This is a very, very intricate tool or key tool for making sure that we can address that. It was interesting, just the other day we had a Cowboy State Daily article that said feral hogs are on their way. They've been found in Colorado, North Dakota, and there's been talk of Montana. I pray that never happens, but if it does, this is going to definitely be things that are arsenals that are going to need to be there. So you guys can read all that and see that. One of the things that I do want to say, and a concern, and I'm sure you'll hear about this from Game and Fish, is we don't want to ever give poachers an ability to have an upper hand. And so we want to be very careful of that. One thing that I would say is this technology is here. It's readily available. I just made a comment last year, or maybe a year and a half ago, there was a company that started making the stimulus scope. It was based off the stimulus package. It was a $1,500 thermal scope. So it's becoming affordable for the average person to own this technology. And so in my opinion, the technology is there and bad people do bad things. And so I believe that if someone wants to poach, they're already poaching. And this would actually put honest, law-abiding citizens in the field with the ability for us to put eyes on the ground and say, hey, you know what? We got to see fill in the blank happen, and we could report that. A majority of all poaching cases are reported by sportsmen, just because there's no way we could put that many law enforcement on the ground. So I think that's kind of the 30,000 foot view. And with that, I won't take any more of your time and be open to any questions that you may have.
Questions for Representative Harrelson? No? Guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony.
Do you want me to stay up here or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just stick
I'll
around.
just scoot over.
Stick around, yeah, for sure. We'll hear from our agency folks now. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Brian Nesvik, Director, Wyoming Game and Fish, and I have here today the Chief Game Warden, Rick King, and he'll do most of the talking here. He's had the lead on this particular bill, but I just wanted to start by saying that, you know, we do have a few concerns. We brought these concerns and worked with the bringer of the bill early, and he was good in helping us draft up an amendment that was adopted, as he indicated, that certainly does make us more comfortable with this bill. You know, the whole notion of night hunting has been legal in Wyoming for a very long time on private land. It was initially, the legislative intent was to give landowners the opportunity to protect private property by taking predatory animals at night. And it, you know, for the most part, that's been, I think, for most landowners would tell you that that's successful, and that they like to have that opportunity to be able to protect their private property. Unfortunately, as Representative Haraldson mentioned, there are a very, very small percentage of folks that have nefarious intent. And that's certainly what we're most concerned about, is how, you know, any new legalized technology might open up doors for folks to make it easier for those that already have bad intent, are probably going to do it anyway, but make it easier for them to get away with it, or say, hey, I was just coyote hunting. So, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Rick and let him talk through some of our concerns, and then certainly answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. King.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rick King. I'm the Chief Game Warden for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. And Director Nesvik covered our concerns pretty well, so I can be pretty brief. But as Director Nesvik mentioned, the ability to use artificial light and this technology on private property to harvest predators is already there. I think the primary concern from my standpoint is one of safety. When we're talking about private land, a private landowner has the ability to determine who's going to be on the property and use that technology, and has the opportunity to make sure they're aware of where roads and buildings and livestock and power poles are. But with this expanded ability on public land, there really won't be anybody there to provide that information. So we certainly have some concerns about safety on public land. As you all know, there's a lot of uses, a lot of folks out on public land these days, and we certainly have a safety concern. The second concern, as Director Nesvik mentioned, is the enhanced opportunity, I think, for some illegal activity. Our folks work pretty hard to protect Wyoming's resource and make sure that it's used wisely by folks that follow our rules for that fair use. And I do think that there's a significant concern that this technology and this opportunity to be out there on public land will be used by some folks with ill intent. As it stands right now, if somebody's out running a spotlight, for example, on public land, we get reports, and as Representative Haraldson mentioned, that's how most bigger, larger poaching cases are found by us, is through reports. And right now, if somebody's out there on the landscape on public land using artificial light, it gets reported to us. And with this, I think that could go away. So those are our two primary concerns. We certainly do appreciate the amendment that was brought in the House committee. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Chief King? Go ahead, Senator Grew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Just start off just making a comment. I understand this bill, and in a lot of parts of the state, it's needed, and I get that. Now, where I come from, there are a lot of concerns about this bill, as I'm sure you can imagine. And I joke sometimes, I'm going to run for election, I become the Northwest Wyoming distributor of concern. And so, but I've heard a lot about this. And so when I turn my attention, my gaze to page 3 and section H, if I could just ask some questions, there are, and it's not just in Teton County, but it's around the state, areas that get high traffic use for recreational purposes, whether it's the Met at the Bow or, up in the Bighorns and stuff around there, access where public lands and private lands and interface. When you talk about, when it's contemplated here that about the commission promulgating rules and creation of zones, areas, are we talking about carving out zones and saying you're not going to be able to do this in this zone because of high use camping, recreating? Is that what's contemplated when this is written, or is there something else? Or
Go ahead.
let's say I'm
Go ahead,
sorry, whoever
Representative.
can
Go ahead.
help me.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senator Grew. So the whole concept here is that we want to give Game and Fish the ability to make wise choices, because what we don't want is a free-for-all, obviously. Currently, you guys have to, I think one thing we need to just keep at a 30,000-foot view is currently they can do it right now in the pitch black dark. And so that's the part I think that is a little scary. So this would say, hey, you know what? So huge days in the hunting world is October 1st, October 15th. We're not going to predator hunt around those days because we don't want a whole bunch of predator hunters out there stirring up game. You know what? We've got the Grovaunt shed hunt. We've got guys camping out there getting ready for the shed hunt. Let's probably not shoot predators the night before the Grovaunt, because we might have people that are going to get whittled up. The other thing, and if you guys are willing, I will send you some videos of this technology. You guys have to be aware coyotes die, if you're okay with watching that. But just so you get an idea of what the individual using this does see in comparison to maybe what you think they may see, I guess is what I'll say. Did that answer, Senator Grew, did that answer the question?
Go ahead, Senator.
Yes. Yes, to a point.
Okay.
I guess I still have, and my constituents have a concern about this all the way down the line. And it's like I say, I know on private land, it's legal, and I don't want it to, don't misunderstand. I understand what ranchers need to do on their land in their operations. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about public land.
Yep.
And so, and in a lot of areas around the state, that there are differences on how those public lands get used, on whether it's a grazing permit and you're running animals on that, then that's one thing. But in a lot of areas, it's not. And so that's what I'm trying to, at the heart of my concern about this.
Can I make one more statement real quick?
Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So a beauty of the Game and Fish's process is public testimony. Game and Fish's power comes from, hey, you know what, let's do that town forum, let's do those surveys, and make decisions for specific areas. Because you turn around and you go, the BLM, the thousands of acres of BLM outside of Converse County compared to your county that's almost completely comprised of public lands, but they're not the same public lands. Obviously, I don't think that a one-size-fits-all on the state will work.
And Madam Chair and Senator Grew, the other thing I would say to that is that, it's important to note that nothing in this amendment provides the authority for the Game and Fish Department to manage predatory animals. That authority lies with the Department of Ag. What this does is it provides the commission with the authority to regulate methods of take, like they do now with trapping. So we don't manage predatory animals. We don't manage coyotes, as an example. However, the commission has the ability to regulate how traps are used to take predatory animals, and that's what this contemplates. And the other thing, it certainly provides the commission to consider safety, but it also allows the commission to look at areas like south of your district, where we have very vulnerable rutting, winter range mule deer. Certain times of the year, they're very vulnerable. It would give the commission the opportunity to say, no, during this period of time in these particular areas, we're not going to allow this. It doesn't mean that somebody that has bad intent isn't going to go out there, but that would reduce the probability of the opportunistic predator hunter who, oh my gosh, look at what I just saw, and wouldn't otherwise go out and do that, but then takes advantage of that opportunity to take a large vulnerable buck deer as an example.
Follow up? No? Other questions? Senator Baldwin.
I'm just trying to figure out how to form a question. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Is that I've been on both ends. I've been on, when the pendulum was over here, I grew up in the time when we went out with spotlights and all night long shot jackrabbits, right? So everybody was out there with spotlights and it was dangerous. I'm still alive, so apparently I must have done something right. And now the pendulum switched the other way where nobody's out there. Well, theoretically, nobody's out there with spotlights. So if somebody's out there with a spotlight now, you know they're up to something nefarious, unless they're on private land. If you go out on public land, somebody's out with a spotlight, you know that they're out there probably trying to poach something or looking for something. Somewhere now the pendulum's in the middle, and that's my only problem with the bill and where I have trouble coming to grips. Infrared night vision, not a problem. It's already being used, and I understand that, and it's probably being used by bad actors and by good actors alike. By the way, feral hogs, I don't think they'll ever come to Wyoming. Just personal thoughts. We may get a few, but we're not too cold because I've hunted them where it's cold. We're a little too high. Anyway, that's another story. So I don't think feral hogs are going to be a problem in Wyoming. But what I anticipate is now people going out, maybe it won't be with spotlights now, but maybe it will be. And I foresee a difficulty for the wardens out there saying, what are they doing? And you're exactly right. They're going to say, well, I'm coyote hunting. You know, are they really coyote hunting, or are they down on the North Platte River where the winter grounds are, or down by LaBarge on the winter grounds, which of course we've already got a law that keeps them out of there, right? Because you can't go on those winter grounds. But I guess I'm looking for coyotes. So that's my only concern with the bill. It's not enough to get me to vote no, but that's my concern. And I just guess I'm trying to gauge the concern of the Game and Fish about that exact thing happening. If we open that up, how big a problem do you think it's going to be with guys that are going to take a spotlight and say, yeah, I'm hunting coyotes. Yeah, I'm hunting bobcats.
Go ahead, Chief.
Madam Chair, Senator Baldwin, those are my concerns as well. I think if, as Director Nesbitt mentioned, there are very few folks that are really have ill intent. They're the one percenters. And I think that our folks are smart and capable and certainly will be able to adjust to whatever reality comes out of this bill. I do appreciate the opportunity that this provides the commission to have public input weigh in during the rule and the promulgation of rules and regulations. I think that'll be very important for the public to really help define the parameters of what this will look like as we implement it.
Other questions?
Madam Chair, I might just add one quick point to Chief King's points there. So we have our wardens have some of this technology now that they use in protecting wildlife. And, we've had a lot of discussions around this topic and how much more prevalent this technology is. And irregardless of where this bill goes or what it looks like if it passes, we're going to buy our enforcement folks this kind of technology to make sure they've all got it.
Other questions? I have just one, and it was mainly about the, on page 3, the dates. What do you anticipate that, in terms of a season for this type of predatory hunting? Do you have any ideas on that?
And Madam Chair, I don't want to get too far ahead of where the commission may go, but I think that this is broad enough that it could be tailored very locally. And so it could be much, much different in western Wyoming where there's a lot of public land than it is in eastern Wyoming where there's a lot of checkerboard land. And it could be different where there's mule deer winter ranges and compared to where there's not. And I keep talking about mule deer because that's probably the primary concern. Those are the critters that make themselves the most vulnerable during the rut. So there would be a lot of opportunity. And as Representative Haraldson mentioned, our commission has a very public and, a very robust public engagement process. And so there would be opportunities to, at local levels, discuss how this should be, just like we do with hunting seasons. We wouldn't, again, just to be very clear, I don't want to get anybody concerned about us setting seasons for coyotes. That would not be, we wouldn't be setting a season. We would be looking at areas where this kind of activity would be prohibited during certain times of the year.
Anything else?
I do.
Go ahead, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just reading the bill and understanding the concern a little bit better. We use a lot of public land for oil and gas development, grazing. So when you're contemplating some of the more just sideboards, you don't want people out there shooting if you have even critical infrastructure or something like that. So just wanted to get your thought of how you would handle that when it comes to federal public lands.
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think that all of those things could certainly be considered when the commission was going to consider rules. But again, it's pretty case by case. There are certain public lands that have a lot of infrastructure on them and a lot that don't. And that has to be actually, the commission has experience with that. They have to contemplate those things now too. It's not as much with like oil and gas infrastructure as it is critical road junctions and where hunt areas are structured because of that. But the commission has experience and has dealt with having to deal with this locally in their normal course of their business now.
Other questions? I have just one more, and it is mainly just the enforcement part for the chief. When I read through the bill, that was the biggest red flag that came to me was, I know you're a little bit shorthanded already with game wardens. Do you feel like this might put even more pressure on your department to be able to enforce this kind of situation?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the simple answer is yes. This will increase our workload and our enforcement burden on a staff that's shorthanded right now. We're working hard to bridge the gap between vacancies, and that'll certainly help. But simple answer is yes, this is an increased burden for us.
Other questions? Okay. There are no other questions. I guess we'll go ahead and turn you guys loose for a little bit if you'll just hang around in case we need any follow-up. And let's go ahead and turn to public testimony. Anyone in the room that would like to testify on this bill, please come forward. No takers? Okay. I think we have somebody or maybe two somebodies online. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, we only have one, Nephi Cole.
Okay, go ahead and bring him in.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Good to be here again. I wish the roads were open so I could finally get down to Cheyenne and see you guys in person. So I'm Nephi Cole. I'm the Director of Government Relations and State Affairs for the National Shooting Sports Foundation. We're the Firearms Trade Association of America. So we represent the 9,000 manufacturers, retailers, and distributors in the professional space in the firearms world. So we represent the companies that make all optics, both night vision optics and standard optics, firearms. We also are the guys that pay. We're very proud to partner with Wyoming Game and Fish. We have a manufacturer's tax on the things that we produce that called the Pittman-Robertson tax that pays about $1 billion a year into conservation. Our members include groups like Mule Deer Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, and other conservation groups, and then mom and pop gun shops, Cabela's, Shields. That's our membership. And so just wanted to express our support for House Bill 104 and in our view what this bill does. 34 states, as has been mentioned, allow the use of these tools for taking predators on public and private lands, including all of the states surrounding Wyoming. We actually did some research. We looked at states when Pennsylvania recently allowed the use of thermal and night vision for hunting predators in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania did a survey of all the states that do allow this technology. Of the 19 states that responded, those states indicated that they did not see, none of those states saw a significant increase in poaching. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a concern, and we're very sensitive to the work that Game and Fish does. Certainly, the department in Wyoming is an amazing group of individuals, and they do phenomenal work. That's why we believe that this bill's approach of simply allowing the Game and Fish Commission to promulgate rules is the right approach. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow Game and Fish to look at those areas where these tools should be used. And we recognize and we think that there is a great case study that these are the right tools for the job. We're not talking about, this is not trophy game hunting. This is not hunting big game. This is predator control. And this is the right tool for the job. We really appreciate the Game and Fish has recognized that they've talked about that. we understand Game and Fish's, the department's concern with workload. I think it's justified based on the enormous amount of work that they have to do today. We do believe that the Game and Fish is out there right now. There's this technology, it's out there today. Anybody can buy it. If somebody's using it, they're a bad actor, they have it. Game and Fish every warden should have these technologies in their trucks. That's without a doubt, that is the case. But I would stipulate that people are poaching at night right now. And if we believe that by not allowing lawful use of this technology, that's going to somehow preclude us from having to watch out for poachers at night, we just don't believe that that's the case. We think that this is a good bill. We think that it creates an opportunity. The governor asked for $2.25 million to do predator control in the state of Wyoming, additional money for predator control this year. We pay the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service to kill 64,000 coyotes every year in this country. Anecdotally, a local hunter in North Dakota who gave me his information, videos and whatnot, he took 300 coyotes himself this fall. So a sportsman can be effective at helping control predators with these technologies. This technology does not make people less safe. It's the opposite. It makes them more safe. Right now, the ability to go hunt at night for predators is absolutely it's permissible. Anybody can do it. This technology does not make it more dangerous. What this technology does is allow you to actually see where those things are, where the cows are, where buildings are, where roads are, all those things that, these concerns that we've heard people bring. We're fixing the problem, not causing it by allowing the use of these technologies. I hope that you will give this bill a due pass recommendation and allow Game and Fish to promulgate the rules necessary to allow this use.
Questions for Mr. Cole? Go ahead, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to push a little bit on some of the information you gave us. When you talk about all the states that authorize some of the thermal night and hunting on public lands, or engaging this activity, not hunting, engaging this activity on public land. When I look at the list that we were provided in a handout, not all of these states are public land states. And I think that's what makes us a little unique. Wyoming's 50% more or less public land. So when I look at other states that have very little public land, I think we probably need to be really cautious in just focusing on other states that are like ours that have public land. So I don't know if you've had that information broken out, but if you do, I'd be curious to know.
Mr. Cole?
Madam Chairwoman, Senator Ellis, thank you very much. Yes, we do. And so in fact, every state that borders us that's a public land state does in fact allow the use of these technologies for taking predators on their lands. So those include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, South Dakota, literally draw a ring around Wyoming, all of them allow it. And I think that you touched on a very important point. Wyoming is a public land state, and there's been some discussion about the use of these tools on private lands right now where they're absolutely legal to use for taking predators on private lands. 55% of Wyoming's grazing does not occur on private lands. It's occurring on public lands. So if you are a agricultural producer and you want to do predator control and you have animals out on the range, you cannot legally do it today on public lands. It doesn't matter if you have the grazing lease, that's public lands. You cannot use these technologies on those lands today.
Other questions? I have just one, Mr. Cole. I'm not familiar with this night lighting and the infrared and that sort of thing. One thing you can maybe help me with is does it really help you to be able to tell whether or not this is a sheep, a baby calf, a fox, or a coyote?
Chairwoman Schuler, members of the committee, the response to that is yes, and it's going to depend on how much, how close you are, and you get what you pay for in terms of this technology. So there's several different kinds. Of course, this bill is contemplated by Game and Fish today, by the committee today, includes the use of white light. And so I think that's important to note that when you hit something with a spotlight, that kind of gives you an idea of like how it increases your ability to tell what that thing is and is not when you're using standard high capacity lights. The same thing would be true with night vision and thermal. So these technologies simply, they shift the wavelength of light that you are looking at. And so With night vision technology, you're going to be looking at the near infrared. And so typically there will be an illuminator which is used with that. And what that illuminator does is it's the lack of a better term, it's an invisible flashlight. It's a light that only somebody who's wearing night vision can then see that light. And so if you flooded an entire area with infrared light, it would look to you as if it was day underneath the night vision. But for somebody that was not wearing the night vision, it would just look dark as well to them. With thermal, what thermal does is it looks at the heat of an object, and depending on how much you spend, there will be different layers of quality for thermal. So for example, most of the cheap thermal will say that they have a 300-yard identification range. And so at 300 yards, you're going to be able to clearly tell the difference between the different things that are out there. The higher end technology, it's what you see on the nose of an Apache helicopter. So it just kind of, it depends on how much you want to spend on that technology. Again, we believe the technology is here. We think our wardens should have access to it. It is the best technology for controlling predators at night. And we hope that you will allow Game and Fish to promulgate rules to allow its use.
Thank you for that testimony. Anybody else have any questions? Thanks so much. We appreciate you. With that, is there anything else that the sponsor of the bill would like to add, or our agency folks? Anything else?
I have one more question.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is a question either for the director or the bringer of the bill. Just looking on page 4, the effective date, I've just noticed this trend where we start saying, this section 2, the Game and Fish shall write rules, then section 3, this, except as provided in B, this act is effective July 1st, and then B says these sections 2 and 3 are effective immediately, like these just really complicated effective dates. If we were just to change this to this act as effective July 1st, does that hinder your ability to start writing rules immediately?
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Senator Ellis, we can start writing them and have some drafts, but we can't start the public process till the law's in effect July 1st. So we'd be prepared, and we would immediately begin the work if it passes and it was effective July 1st. It probably wouldn't be in effect though, like we wouldn't have the rules in place for people to go use this for 60 days after that. Going through the rulemaking process, it would probably be the September commission meeting when they would approve the final set of rules.
Senator Representative Harrelson, Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a concern about, it's one of my just kind of pet peeves of how we draft legislation anymore.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Representative.
Thank you. And Senator Ellis, I'm totally fine with changing that date. Obviously, you're saying section B, the immediate clause is what you're saying, elimination, or even talking about it different from a July. I know July 1st is the date that is in the auto injection mode of LSO, but I'm also okay with making that a September 1st date or an October 1st date if we need to. But for sure, elimination of section B would be fine by me.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I won't mess with it. It's more just a drafting thing. I think if we just get back to saying this act is effective July 1st, then agencies can in general start writing their rules, and then it all kind of staggers and works itself out. But I did have one other question, Madam Chair. On page 3, line 10, I think when as I read this, maybe to tighten it up a little, would be on Romanet 3, any person taking a predatory animal on public land. I'm curious to know, I'm thinking about inserting the words subject to the limitations established by the commission as authorized in 23-306H. Does that, I think, and this is for the public so that they don't say, no, it says here, I can do this on any land. It says it right here, but just to say, no, subject to these limitations. Would you be comfortable with an amendment to get us a little closer?
Representative or Director?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Senator Ellis. I would be fine with that because at the end of the day, what my goal through this is open up the opportunity, but put the purview of the control of the opportunity in Game and Fish's hands, and that would further do that. And I'm totally fine with that. And I think that I'm going to reiterate what he said, and this is for more of the Zoom world. This doesn't change when you can shoot coyotes. It just changes when you can shoot coyotes with thermal, night vision, and light, because we need to be very clear on that, because if not, I'll be in trouble, he'll be in trouble, and everyone will be grumpy, and we don't want that. So this is just in that thermal realm, and that would sit with that So would that at all affect that? Sorry, I'm thinking now I'm putting that hat on.
Yeah, I think that does, Madam Chair, Senator Ellis, I think that does clarify things. And I didn't even think about this until you just read that. But looking at this, I almost wonder if we're going to make an amendment that it should say public land or state lands, because state lands aren't defined or considered by the Office of State Lands as public land. And this would certainly, I think the intent from the bringer is that it would apply on lands that are managed by the Office of State Lands.
Good catch. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? Okay. Thank you. Got a frog in my throat, so thank you. Thank you very much for answering those questions. Appreciate it. All right, with that, is there anybody else in the room that just decided they wanted to testify? No? All right, then. We'll go ahead and close public testimony then, and what's your pleasure? Okay, Senator Baldwin has moved the bill. Second over here with Senator Garou. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bill and see if there's any changes or issues. Page 1. Okay, page 2. Page 3. Go ahead, Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move on page 3, line 10, after the word on, insert state or. And then on line 11, after the word land, insert subject to the limitations established by the commission as authorized in Wyoming statute 23-3-306H.
We might have to give those statutes again. I know I couldn't keep up with, do you want to do that one more time, Senator
Yeah,
Ellis?
I can say it one more time, though.
Sure.
So it would be any person the sentence would read, any person taking a predatory animal on state or public land, subject to the limitations established by the commission as authorized in 23-3-306H. And H is that paragraph right below.
Were you able to get that, Doreen? Okay, great. Any other amendments? Well, first we better vote on that one, shall we? All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that amendment is passed. Any others?
Madam Chair, on page 4.
Did you have anything else on page 3?
Nope, I was gonna do page 4.
Okay, all right. Page 4, go ahead, Senator.
Madam Chair, I move to delete lines 1 through 7 entirely. On line 8, delete section, comma. And then you would capitalize this. And then delete paragraph B, lines 10 through 13. And just a little explanation if it gets a second. That way the commission has some flexibility to time that out better when your commission meets to finalize your rule. I was going to leave it alone until you said that, but I think there's no urgency here. We should, I would hate for you guys to have to meet again or get this done quickly if it doesn't align with when your commission can meet to authorize the final rule.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Representative.
Madam Chairwoman and Senator Ellis. So could you just give us those numbers again? We're just trying to write it in and get an idea of what we're up to.
Madam Chair, another way of explaining it would be there'd just be a brand new section 2, and it would just say this act is effective July 1st, 2023. It would get rid of everything else.
Are we all on the same?
Are you comfortable with that, Chief?
Madam Chair, Senator Ellis, just for clarification, currently in section 2, lines 1 through 3, that provides the Game and Fish the authority to implement rules and regulations. Does that need to remain in there?
Madam Chair, I don't think so, because on the prior page, it says the commission shall establish by rule and regulation specifications.
So it's almost.
It's just a drafting convention that's kind of driving me crazy, saying this agency is authorized to start writing rules right away, when you guys can already do that. I mean, the day that this, is signed by the governor, assuming it makes it, you guys can start working on rules right away. That's my understanding, unless I'm wrong. I just think we need to stop spelling that out in statutes or in our bills.
Chief, you're okay with that? Okay. Doreen, did you get that change? Okay, great. Anything else, committee? Okay, let's go ahead then and take a,
Vote on the amendment.
oh, yeah, we have to vote on that last amendment. All those in favor of the last amendment on page 4, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that amendment is adopted. All right. Are we ready now for a roll call?
Just a quick,
Okay, comments, yes.
just a quick comment. Thank you and thanks to the committee. I think it's a better bill. Still gonna be voting against it because that's, like I say, that's where my constituents lay on this one. But I do, when I say that, I understand this is bigger than our little area's proclivities. And so, I don't expect or ask anyone to follow along with me necessarily on that, but I appreciate the rules. And the other thing is, I know, and I've watched, I'm not big, I know the senator isn't big on task forces either, but it seems like the one outfit in this government that knows how to run one is the Game and Fish Department. And so I feel very comfortable with the fact that when they promulgate rules, that they'll be able to take into account the different little nuances in this and in all the parts of the state. And that's just recognizing that tourism is growing and how, it does have a role to play. In bills like this, it'll have a role to play. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mitchell, any other comments? I would just also say the same thing. I think the amendment on page 3 that the Game and Fish added in there made a big difference on me being able to be supportive of the bill. I think that's a good catch. So I appreciate what the agency has done. So with that, if there's no other comments, we'll go ahead and take roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hunting of predatory animals, House Bill 104, Page, Senator Baldwin.
Aye.
Senator Ellis.
Aye.
Senator Garou.
No,
Senator Jones.
Aye.
And Chairman Schuler.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes and 1 no.
Okay, the bill is passed. We appreciate the bringer of the bill and thank you for the agency people for being here today. Thanks so much. Yes, who would like to present this?
One of his co-sponsors.
That's just what I was going to say. I'll bet you already had somebody lined up. All right, perfect. We'll let him know. Thank you. Keep forgetting.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Are we adjourned?